Plea bargain. That news was communicated today on the second anniversary of the morning murder of whistleblower Babita Deokaran of the Gauteng Health Department. And the six people who had been on trial, being involved in her murder, did say as part of their plea bargain that they were hired to kill her because she was causing trouble at work. Bernadette Wicks of Eyewitness News joins us now. Tell us, Bernadette, good afternoon, a little bit more about what the plea bargain says.
So in terms of the plea bargain, the accused before court who have now been convicted did indicate that they were approached, or at least accused number one initially was approached by a man who's been identified as Mpongose, and that he indicated that there was this woman who needed to be dealt with. She was causing problems at work, and ultimately that's how they were recruited. After he had approached accused number one, Pakamani Khadebe, he then roped in the other accused who were before court today, and that's essentially how they became involved in this matter.
So who's Mpongose?
Well, that's the question at the moment. We don't know. It's the first time that this individual's name has come up over the last 2 years. We've never heard of him before. He's not before court. And we're not really quite sure at this stage what the current status is in terms of investigations. But he has been publicly identified. So you would think, against that backdrop, that the authorities are now pursuing him.
What do you mean, publicly identified?
Well, he was mentioned in the plea and sentence agreement, which was read out in open court, and he was named in that plea and sentence agreement. So, if
named as Mpongose only.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Kanyasani Mpongose, and of course, that plea and sentence agreement is something that the state and the defence would have both sort of sat together and hashed out, and the state wouldn't have named him in that document unless they obviously felt like he was involved. And if they do feel like he's involved, the only inference to draw from that is that they are investigating further.
And do we know that it is a real name, that there is somebody called Kanyisani Mpongose? Did accused number one have prior relationship with Mr. Mpongose?
So from what we understand from the plea and sentence agreement, he knew him from the taxi industry. We do know from previous reports, News 24 did a very sort of deep dive piece when these six were initially arrested just after Babita Deokaran's murder. And we know that they all have links to the taxi industry. And apparently it was through the taxi industry that accused number one, Pakamani Khadebe, did know this Mpongose character.
And is there any clue in the plea agreement as to whether Mpongose was the commissioning actor or whether he was negotiating on behalf of somebody else because he had the connections that the sort of original commissioner didn't have?
So we understand that he was kind of an intermediary. In what they say in the plea and sentence agreement is that it was clear that while he was talking about this woman being problematic and causing problems at work, he didn't mean his work and he didn't mean causing problems for him. There was clearly a third party involved. Who that third party is, who the ultimate mastermind and paymaster would have been, we still don't know. That certainly wasn't contained in the plea and sentence agreement today.
And no indication at all as to whether Kanyisani Mpongose is in police custody or whether they are hot on his trail or whether he's disappeared into thin air or whether they have no idea. I mean, they must, in order to for the state to have accepted the plea agreement, they must believe that they were given honest information. Therefore, they must believe that it is true that Kanyisani Mpongose approached accused number one, who then approached accused number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to carry out the act.
Absolutely. They must believe that it's accurate information they're being provided with. Again, bear in mind that the way these kinds of plea and sentence agreements work is that essentially in exchange for cooperation and in exchange for information and sort of as recognition for their assisting the court and assisting the authorities, they did receive, some of them significantly decreased sentences. I mean, the sentences, some of them received 22 years, some of them received only 6 years. So on that basis, they would not have, the state and the court, of course, they certainly wouldn't have agreed to kind of mitigate the sentences down to that degree did they believe that they weren't being told the truth about this. So they must obviously believe that this is true information, this is accurate information. But in terms of their next steps, we really don't know. Of course, it's an ongoing investigation, so there are sensitivities around it. And to be quite honest, I was quite surprised that his name was actually read out in court today, in open court today myself, because the natural feeling would be that you wouldn't want to jump the gun, but they obviously feel confident because there's no other explanation for it.
Thank you very much, Eyewitness News reporter Bernadette Wicks.
Afternoon Drive with John Maytham
on CapeTalk.